Scientific method and components of scientific method. We looked at two different situations, and so these are what are on your two post-its from when we put our vocab in. We have 2 pages side by side in our spiral notebook that were blank. We put the vocab, let me get my pointer here. We took the vocab sheet, we folded it over to cover the definitions but not the terms, and we taped in the vocab sheet on the left-hand side all the way at the top. One piece of tape on the fold, one piece of tape right here. Then we went over each one of these components first in class, and then we used a glue stick to glue them in. So, hypothesis. So for this experiment, this is the post-it, Mrs. Johnson wants to see if sugar consumption will increase test scores. So a hypothesis is kind of like a prediction. It has to be an explanation that's testable about a scientific question or and something that leads to a scientific investigation. So when we look at each one of these tabs, we notice something that looks like a prediction about what we think will happen. So we highlighted hypothesis yellow, we highlight this tab yellow because this is the hypothesis. Controlled variables or constants are things that we want to keep the same in an experiment. We want to keep as many things as possible the same. So when we ran our test, we tested the same type of student. They were all high school students. It might affect the results if some students are kindergartners and some students are high school students. So we want to keep that the same. That's a controlled variable. The type of test that we used was the same for everybody. We used a Kahoot. If we had used a Kahoot for some people and an essay test for others, that might have affected the test results, so we want to keep that the same. Background information would have also been a constant or a controlled variable. Ideally, everybody would have the same background information, and so we're all entering the test with the same background information. That's not always possible because everyone has different experiences, but ideally we would want to keep that the same. And then finally, the amount of time to answer the question was a controlled variable. We wanted to give everyone the same amount of time to answer the questions. If some people had 5 seconds to answer and other people had 60 seconds, that might affect the test results. So, controlled variables, we highlight that blue, then we highlight all of our controlled variables blue. Independent variable, we're highlighting that orange. This is the one thing that we purposely changed. The one thing that was purposely changed was the amount of Smarties eaten. Some students got 1 Smartie, some got 2, some got no Smarties at all. So we're going to highlight that orange because that's our independent variable. Dependent variable is what we're looking for an effect in. So because everyone got different amounts of Smarties, what were we looking for an effect in? We were looking for an effect in how many questions they answered correctly or what their overall test score was. So dependent variable, we highlight purple. Number of questions answered correctly, highlight purple because that's the dependent variable. Experimental group is who we're doing the experiment on. So they're part of the experiment and they're getting the independent variable. So the students that ate 1 or more Smarties, they are part of the experimental group because they are getting the independent variable. They're getting Smarties. So experimental group, highlight pink. Students who ate 1 or more Smarties, highlight pink. Control group is a group of individuals that are part of the experiment. However, they don't get the independent variable. So students who ate Smarties are part of the experimental group. That's who I'm experimenting on. Students who didn't get any Smarties are part of the control group. So highlight control group green. Highlight students who did not eat any Smarties green. Then you can take that post-it note that tells what's the experiment about, and you can just stick it anywhere on this page. This is just a reminder of what that experiment was about. All right, next was the test to see if different types of sugar solutions will attract more butterflies. That's going to go on the right-hand side page. So we can just put that post-it up here at the top, and then we can use a glue stick to glue all of these in. Hypothesis was yellow. That's our scientific explanation that leads to a scientific investigation, our prediction of what we think will happen. So when we look over all of these, butterflies will prefer the sugar solution, so that looks like a prediction of what we think will happen. So we highlight that yellow. Next, control variable, things that we want to keep the same. So if we set out different solutions, we want them to be in the same color bowls. If I put one in a white bowl and one in a red bowl, that might affect the results. So we want to keep that the same. We want to keep the volume of the solution that we put in the bowls the same. If one bowl has a drop of solution in it and another bowl has a gallon, then that might affect our results. So we want to keep that the same. The amount of time the solutions are left at a location needs to be kept the same. It wouldn't be fair if one bowl was set out for 5 minutes and one bowl set out for 5 hours. That could affect our results. And then finally, we want to keep the location where the bowls were set the same. Oh, wait, well, yeah. We want to keep the location where the bowls were set the same, but that's not the final one, because we also want to count the same type of insect. It wouldn't be fair to put one bowl in the woods and another in a parking lot, because that might affect the results. And we don't want to count butterflies on one bowl and ants on another. That would definitely affect our results. So controlled variables were highlighted blue, the vocab term highlighted blue, so we're going to highlight all of our controlled variables blue. Independent variable is the one thing we purposely changed, so we're going to have different types of solutions in the bowls. Independent variable was highlighted orange, so we're going to highlight type of solution orange. Dependent variable, because we changed the type of solution, we're looking for an effect in the number of butterflies at each bowl. Dependent variable was highlighted purple on our vocab sheet, so we're highlighting this purple. And then finally, our experimental group. What are we doing the experiment on? We're doing our experiment on the butterflies. So experimental group was highlighted pink on the vocab sheet. We're going to highlight pink here. For this experiment, we don't have a control variable because we're using different types of solutions, and we can't just not have a solution. It won't work. So not all experiments will have controlled variables, and that's okay. This needs to go into your spiral notebook.